Hi everyone, and welcome to another city for Home Coffee Brewing. My name is Patrick Rolfe, and I think maybe some of you know where I'm standing. For those of you that don't, I'm in Chicago, and main reason for being in Chicago is to actually compete in the World Brewers Cup. But I think it would be kind of nice to meet up, check out some local coffee shops, do some home brewing videos as well. We're not going to have that many home coffee brewing videos just because I am quite busy competing. But it's been really interesting to kind of meet up with them, see what they're up to. Definitely some different approaches to brewing than what we're used to. I think that reflects the fact that the local coffee scene here is quite different. We're very far from Scandinavian light roast, and here in Chicago, there's definitely a different vibe in terms of strength of coffee and stuff like that, right? But beautiful city, very dynamic, great food scene, and even though the coffee shop scene maybe leaves for more to wish for, still super interesting to be here. It's the hometown of Intelligentsia, which is one of the more kind of important coffee shops in the history of specialty coffee, more or less, right? Or important companies. So really cool to be here, and we're looking forward to kind of introduce you to everyone. And first out in this video is going to be Joshua. So we're on the inside here in Chicago, and we're going to brew some coffee, and I know that you're going to do something that I'm not used to brewing wise, at least.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Cool.
So I'm kind of curious to see what will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah? Awesome.
So it's a Japanese iced pour over. I don't know where to start in the journey, but my wife and I like different kinds of coffee. So I've got like the April here and then the Dak coffee, and they're two very different approaches. So you like the washed and clean flavor, which is what I like, and I like that hot. But my wife really likes more like cocktail tasting coffee, so like the super heavily processed things. Yeah. And we've tried 13 different flavors of them, and we've found that she really likes the like the cocktail flavor iced. So if it's like, the tasting notes are watermelon or something like that, it's cool to drink like a heavily processed coffee that has, really bold notes or whatever, but it can be a little weird if it's hot. And I found that when I'm drinking stuff like, mainly what is April style, I really like that hot, but with the more cocktail weird flavors, those tend to be a lot better iced.
Especially come out better cold. Okay,
yeah.
I think that's really interesting, and I mean I can see how some of these becomes a little bit, let's say, overwhelming.
Yeah.
Or like and intense. And one of those kind of like I'm in Chicago here competing, and when we talk competition coffees, it's not always coffees that you kind of want to necessarily drink a whole cup of or like drink every day, but it could be really fun to just have like a sip on it. Which could be cool, right? So
I think the iced flavor, like I don't know, it just stirs up a lot of those more heavily processed coffees. My cat.
We're both smiling now because we have a really big young Maine Coon trying to eat up the camera. So we'll see what comes out, right? But I reckon that'd be fine.
That'd be pretty awesome if he gets involved somehow.
Actually, huge, and it's amazing that how old did you say he was?
He's 9 months.
That is insane.
Yeah, and he's already like 16 pounds. All of our pets, we have 5 pets. They're all named after musicians. And that's Tom York from Radiohead.
Cool.
Yeah, he's trying to get into our screen there.
It is a pretty sturdy tripod, so I reckon we'll be okay, right? We'll make sure you guys will get to see him as well, because it's quite a majestic cat for sure, right? Definitely.
Yeah, cool. But yeah, so back to the Japanese ice pour over. So my favorite thing about the April Brewer is I think you even write it on the website. It's like the words balance, 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 balance. And sometimes when you make like iced coffee, like it's good for a little while and the ice kind of dilutes it in a weird way over time. But the cool thing about the porcelain brewer, which I'm about to use, is like even as it cools down and the ice melts or whatever, it actually keeps that balance the whole time in a really cool way. So that's why I thought I would try to do something different than like your normal style.
Which is really interesting. And I have to ask, like, where does where is the initial inspiration for that kind of brewing style coming from? Is that like, have you been to Japan and you saw it?
Oh, that's high on my list. Is Japan is like the number one place I want to visit. But yeah, I was just cruising around online. I actually, this is funny. I did not drink coffee until a year ago. Yeah, and so I was in Brazil. I was there actually writing a novel, and whenever I got back, I got into coffee while I was there, and this is a year ago. And then I came back and I went down a rabbit hole of Reddit posts and your videos and stuff like that. And so I went from like not brewing coffee or not even drinking it to you're standing in my kitchen a year later. That's pretty wild.
Pretty interesting. That's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, it's cool. Really wild. So, but yeah.
How come though? Like, how come you started to drink coffee like get into coffee so late?
Yeah, so I had a bunch of stomach problems for like 20 years, and then I went to Brazil. I needed to take a sabbatical, and I was down there writing, and I had read about low FODMAP keto.
Yep.
So there's like keto, and then there's low FODMAP, and that's if anybody's watching, you or somebody has stomach health issues, highly recommend. So while I was on Brazil, I was like, I'm going to try out this thing for my gut health, and it within 3 months totally reset all my health, and I was finally that person. I was that person for a long time. I was like, oh, I can't drink coffee; it makes me feel bad. Now on the other side of it, I can drink it just fine, and now it's like my passion now. So yeah,
that's really cool though.
Yeah. Cool. Well, do you want to? Tom York is now trying to go over the.
He's still good. And we'll see if he actually gets tilted before he, which is okay.
We'll bring him in.
We had a cow in Kenya. You maybe saw that.
Yeah,
We've been through this like quite a few times. It's home brewing, right?
Cool.
Let's just go for it. Right?
Yeah. Awesome.
So. Yeah, water is maybe a good place to start.
Yeah,
I noticed like a water filter on your counter.
Yeah, so I know some of the purists at home maybe watching this are gonna kind of cringe at this. I just use tap water and then I filter it. I'm a bit of a hippie.
So tap water, is this tap water?
That's tap water, yeah, and that filtered through this.
Okay, so it's filtered, yeah.
I'm a hippie, and I don't really like the idea of like, taking plastic bottles of distilled water every week and remineralizing it and all that.
Fair point.
Yeah. So I decided I was like, well, I'm going to try to dial in my brew just using, whatever's filtered.
Yeah.
I think Chicago has the biggest, I was on a tour here and they said that we have the biggest water treatment plant. It's either in the world or in North America. It's huge.
Okay. Wow.
And that's a byproduct of that is that we have really hard water here. And so you won't be able to see it back here, but I have the Ode grinder.
Yeah.
And I actually grind it all the way wide.
Okay.
And I know I'm standing next to like a championship brewer guy, and I'd only been doing this for a year.
Who's using this grinder in the world championship? I'm just
you are?
Oh, yeah,
for
cool. Sure. Because
nice.
I'm a big fan of this grinder.
Cool.
But which generation is it?
It's the Fellow Ode 2.
Ode 2, yeah, sure.
With the stock burrs.
Stock bars,
yeah.
which you should have. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of people, it's very trendy to change burrs now.
Yeah.
You probably read about that
I
somewhere.
almost did it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say like don't.
Why?
Keep the original because it tastes better.
Okay.
That's just, which is also.
I wondered
best,
if there was like
answer,
some
right?
fancy reason why.
No, it just tastes better. I mean, obviously based on my own preference, right? And we all have different preference, right?
Yeah.
But this, let's say, because then you're grinding really coarse.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about the April Brewer and your recipes is you say, grind coarser than other folks. I'm grinding way coarse, and it's because our water is so hard here. I have to overcompensate. I've literally, one Saturday, one bag of coffee. I went through the entire bag, and I made a different cup for every setting on it.
Figure out which
and it was actually one click off of wide open.
Yep.
With the April, and I was like, if you compare that to what's on Reddit or whatever, is like that's heresy.
It's quite different, right? But I mean, which is also fun. Is this specifically for, let's say, the Japanese ice style you're doing now, or is that also?
It's actually for when I'm doing like the super clean, hot April style. It's 10.2 is what it is. Yeah.
check it out.
So yeah, someone at home will have to definitely dial it back to, I think what I've calculated is whatever I read online plus 5. So it's probably like closer to 7 if you're like live in a normal city. But it's almost, it's like 6 or 7.
What would you say, like in general, like both kind of, let's say maybe on the hot one then, just out of curiosity, what is your kind of like, what kind of strength is that giving you? Like, is that like, let's say a light, weak cup of coffee, or is that like a heavier cup? Because I've been around, I just had some morning coffee, like at 2 shops actually here in Chicago. So I've tried to kind of, check out most of them. And I mean, it's in general, the style of coffee here, heavier. Sure, to be fair, like the rest of the US to some degree, right? Like, you're working with 2 European roasteries here. Which also kind of leads me to ask if you kind of have forsaken the local roasteries, or if you have any recommendations also for like local.
Yeah, I mean, my first, so I was drinking after my stomach got healed. I drank some good coffee in Brazil, which is nice. But then whenever I got back, I'm a nerd, and I tried literally the entire menu of Intelligentsia.
Oh, nice.
Every single thing that they do. Really, really great. Really recommend. I tried others, Metropolis and some others as well that are good. But Intelligentsia was kind of like that, and a Chemex were like my gateway drug.
Okay.
And then I tried a couple other brewers and beans. And then whenever I landed on yours, it was partially... The switch from conical to flat bottom was like my first, like, oh, now I'm actually getting good brews at home. And the second was whenever I went from flat bottom to April, and then you're kind of like standard single pour or single cup thing. That's when I was like, oh my god, this is actually as good or better than Intelligentsia. So
okay, that's awesome though, right? And correct me if I'm wrong here, but Chicago is kind of the home, like birthplace of Intelligentsia, right?
Yeah. People claim that they're like the birth of all third wave specialty coffee.
I mean, I think they are. I would say. I remember when I first started. What they did initially was like the go-to is the coolest stuff ever. Right? Now, obviously, the company has changed over the years, as companies do, right? But if I go to, let's say, LA, I would always go to that first kind of Silver Lake shop, which is really cool and kind of iconic, and definitely will visit them. I passed by the roastery actually this morning randomly because I was on the way to a coffee shop that was very close to it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to name drop the coffee shops? Or are they not that great?
Nah, well, I mean, I'm gonna say it's not my style of coffee.
Okay.
Which I think is always okay, right? Metric coffee.
Okay. Yeah, they're good. Yeah.
So like cool little spot for sure. Very like American in terms of taste, which again is not it's a style, right? It's not good or bad for me. It's just a style. Just like Scandinavian is a style as well, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I think both styles has better or lesser good versions in them.
Yeah. I would definitely say that this, both what I brew at home and what I'll even start with Intelligentsia beans, and I'll start to roast, or not roast it, but brew it more like the Nordic style, like the more light. I'm trying to keep the aromatics. I think that's probably the biggest difference is like sometimes in American coffee that, again, I'm only a nerd for a year of this, but I've done like 5 experiments minimum of every day for a year. So I've got a couple thousand under my belt or almost, but it seems to kind of sacrifice some of the aromatics. And I think, I think the other thing about American coffee that I've noticed here locally is it focuses on especially the tasting notes that you get on the bag are for the hot flavor. And something that I like about your company and kind of the Nordic stuff in general is a focus on the cool down temperature. Is like the whole time you're drinking it, what does it taste like? And that's a big difference, I think.
I don't think that it's also kind of rooted, I think, in a cultural difference, whereas American coffee seems to be like this quick, hot thing, right? Yeah. You don't really experience the, let's say, low to cold temperatures. Yeah, right. And the April Brewer, and it's the same now when we're competing here in a few days' time. it's the judges will actually spend most of their time drinking the coffee almost in room temperature.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's the last time to taste the coffee. And if that's not amazing, you're screwed.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the like high end temperature is. Right?
I wasn't going to talk about this, but this one that I have from you is the Costa Rican geisha.
Yep.
And at first I was like, I don't really get any of these tasting notes. And then I did something else around the house, and I came back, and it was not room temperature, but it was like in the middle of that kind of drinking window. And I got in order every single one. I was like,
cool.
okay.
Yeah.
That's what they're going for is,
I would say around like 40, 45 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit.
I'm not either.
But that's roughly where I would want to drink most of my coffee.
Okay.
Just kind of opens up. But then that being said, you obviously want the range, like from hot, warm, cold, because a good coffee is going to change within those temperatures as well, right? Yeah.
Well, coming back to this, like that's kind of a good segue. Like this, I think using your brewer in this style, in this recipe, it actually keeps going. It's like, okay, now that it's cold, how does the dilution coming from the ice like actually keep balance? And I've tried again other brewers, and this is the only one that kind of keeps it going even as it stays cold. So
super cool.
So
what are we actually like? We mentioned it's from Dak.
Yeah.
Dak is. Do you want to tell everyone what
Dak is? Dak is. Well, you probably know better than me, but it's I learned everything I've learned in the last year about coffee by reading online. So I was walking around for like 11 months saying that it was Dak at coffee, and then later I saw a video and I was like, oh, it's pronounced Dak, but it means roof. In Dutch, it's an Amsterdam company, and they're known for doing like really, really crazy kind of cocktail tasting flavors because from lots of really wild like processes. Today, I think, and I've tried, like I said, like 13 other coffees. I think the one that is the most indicative of what we're going to try today is called Grenadine, and it tastes like if you put Grenadine in coffee in a good way. It's a Sidra advanced fermentation natural from Colombia, and the tasting notes on it are strawberry, cherry, raspberry, and pomegranate.
Okay, so very red.
Very red, which kind of it's cool. It is good hot, but when my wife and I had it iced, we were like, holy crap, I've never had anything like this. So we'll try it out.
Awesome. I'm excited. I mean, you have a few roasteries in like, let's say you're into like call it, espresso coffees or funky coffees, whatever you want to say. Then you have these kinds, obviously. You have Manhattan, also in the Netherlands. Yeah. You have Nomad in Spain. Black and White here in the US. Yeah. I think those are all kind of roasteries that a little bit profile themselves around that kind of coffee. How much coffee did you put in there now?
Yeah, I realized as I was standing there, I just went for it. Didn't tell you anything. So the recipe here is going to be 18 grams of coffee, and then this is the interesting part that again, ground pretty coarse there.
That's like a proper coarse kind.
I love how he's being really kind, but I can tell he's suspicious of.
I'm very suspicious, but I also this is also why this is so fun for me, right? Yeah. And it's also why we left the studio, right? So if all you guys saw was me brewing with April Brewer the way I brew it, then you would be so bored by now. So I think this is super interesting.
Cool. So I kind of wet my filter here, 100 grams. We're having to do this for the video up here on the bar.
It's a bit of a different.
I never stand as awkwardly as this, but
so I'm curious because you said 100 grams now, and I go, does that mean you've tested a lot of different grams to figure this one out?
For the water, I think again it may be a Chicago water thing. Yeah, but I like that much to clear out the filter and any I don't know, weird mineral taste.
No,
so,
fair enough.
Yeah.
So we're rinsing with 100 grams, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is that wrong? Tell me. You can.
No, definitely.
You can roast me on the internet.
I think it's important to say there's not really any right or wrongs here, but I think first of all, I really appreciate that you weigh the water.
Oh.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't consider, right? Because paper mass picks up water differently. And if you, like 100 is quite a substantial amount of water, but let's say you do it with 20 grams, and your range is between 10 and 20 grams, then the function of your paper filter is actually going to be different. So the key here, and with a lot of things when it comes to coffee, is consistency, right? So that you're consistent in your rinsing of your filter is a very good thing. And come competition now, later this week, every competitor is going to weigh the rinse.
Okay.
Because it matters.
Yeah, cool.
So you're doing it. Doing it well.
I'll take it. Sure. Yeah. So here's the weird cool thing about the Japanese ice pour over. So what I'm gonna do, it's different from like a cold brew and others, is I actually weigh out my ice cubes, put them in the bottom here, and then my hot brewed coffee water lands on top of the ice cubes that I've weighed out. So you're playing with the ratio a lot. So it's 18 grams of coffee to 250 grams total of water. This is for a single dose. What I like to try to measure in no ice cube is the same. So you kind of have to get creative here with the weighing. But I try to do 75 grams of ice cubes, and that's pretty close. 77.
That's pretty close. 77. I'll say that's fair.
And so then I put the coffee back on top. Got my brewed. Actually, this got a little hotter on me than I wanted it to over here, but
can always pour in some more. Yeah.
Let's see.
So you're looking for 201.
201, and that's 201 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't know what it is for.
No clue. It's always confusing. But I mean, you can switch on the kettle if you want to, right?
All right. And
so 70, which means how much water then?
So 75 grams here, and then what I'm going to try to do is land in two like roughly 85 or 90 gram pours. What I'm trying to get us to 250. The reason why I say roughly is everybody's ice cubes are going to be different at home.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But yeah, right now I'm going to try to do 287 gram pours here at a very awkward height.
Yeah, which is my fault.
It's all right. So what I'm trying to do here is I really like the April kind of the big recipe that you'll have of like a 30 gram circle and then a 70 gram pour that's for your like normal. So 30 gram circle, 70 gram center, and I'm trying to replicate that a bit here. Something that you'll see, this is partially because of its coarseness, partially because of the coffee itself. The drain time is really fast.
Really quick.
I know that the champion guy next to me is thinking I'm crazy, but I promise it'll taste good.
I'm one of those that would not think, I wouldn't think anything until I taste it, right? And I think that's so important, right?
Yeah.
Then if it tastes bad, it might be a different thing.
Yeah, then you won't post this online. Yeah.
Why don't you have any videos from Chicago? Well, because
the
coffee didn't taste so good.
All right, so I've topped it off now at 175 grams of hot water. Again, landing on 75 grams of the ice cubes here.
Exactly.
That's it. And then
that's it. Sounds really simple, right?
Yeah, and so then what I'm going to do is, and I've actually nerded out and measured this next thing out. I let it kind of drain. I won't do the very last couple of drops here. I like to not get any bitterness in there. But I then have figured out that I think 75 grams of ice at this point also tastes good afterwards. And I don't know why. I'm sure there's some Jonathan Gagne or somebody can figure that out.
Someone can say something, I'm sure. So you would pour this over more ice?
Yeah. Yeah. I love how this is like not at all what you would normally do or have at home.
Which I love it as well, though, right? Because it's actually a lot more fun, I think.
So I have just, this may be a compulsive thing of me, but I always like to do it 5 times here. And then, like I said, these
what's the main purpose for doing this now?
I just, thanks for asking. So I really like both with this coffee, your coffee, and then the brewer keeping the aromatics. And I think that this method keeps a lot of aromatics and And I'll even weigh it out here as well. By mixing it up like I just did, I feel like it. I don't know. I used to be a wine guy, so I feel like
there's a little bit like an aeration thing
decanting.
going on.
Yeah,
exactly.
So there we go. That's as close as we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
So all right. If you spit it out, then we know that you won't be posting this online. But yeah. And now you're tasting it, at this level now, and then as it kind of melts a little bit, you'll start to notice how the balance stays the same way, but more like a spectrum that goes out.
Yeah, because it's not like it's cold, but it's not crazy cold.
Yeah,
right? It could have been colder, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, first of all, and we should put this on record, is that I hate cold brews.
Okay.
Like not like this is an ice brew, right? But like cold, the idea of cold brew, which is like coffee and cold water standing overnight and then filtrating it, right?
Yeah.
That's not my thing. So if I were to have a cold coffee, I would do like a Japanese style ice pour over as well. Like I think that's highly recommended, right?
Yeah.
So rather than doing like a full contact brew time overnight, this is what you should do.
Why is that? So why do you hate cold brew and why do you like Japanese?
It's really like a prolonged oxidation that doesn't make sense because the coffee and the water will be so like connected, right?
Sorry, we'll get him in the frame.
No,
all right.
You're running around.
That's Amos, named after Tori Amos. I love that the cats are just characters that they're being heard but not seen.
I also can't get over how massive they are, right? But that's also the coolest thing. Yeah.
So you said the oxidation.
So it's basically like it's the same when you brew. Like the reason why maybe I don't like batch brew so much, and I'm in the wrong country for that because here people love batch brew. It's the issue is the oxidation that happens over too long time. Right. So if you do a batch brew and it's completely fresh, if that's dialed in properly, will taste amazing.
Yeah.
If you leave that for 30 minutes, you leave that for an hour. Not going to work anymore, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of similar with cold brew. You always have this like kind of heavy, slightly chalky taste to it.
Yeah.
This becomes a lot more vibrant. Now it's more colder. The thing is, and I mean, granted, it's also a style of, let's say, roastery or green coffee or processing that I would not necessarily drink very often, right?
Yeah.
But if the game plan is to like really translate these flavor notes into a cup of coffee, I think it actually works really well.
Okay.
For me, I'm surprised over how sweet it is.
Yeah.
And then how much kind of, let's say, flavors you actually have in it. Because looking at your drawdown time, looking at the grind size, obviously it's really quick.
Yeah. I know that like, I don't know why. I think it's a Chicago water thing or something, but I on paper, I could not. I mean, I wasted probably hundreds of dollars of coffee trying to make like, the most popular unnamed. We'll keep them unnamed, like V60 recipes. I just couldn't do it. It was crazy. And then now, after dialing this in, I was like, I don't care what the internet says. I'm just going to use. I'm just going to let taste kind of dictate my recipe here. Sure. And it ended up with this, which is so different, I know, than what anybody online would say.
I mean, the longevity of aftertaste here is quite crazy. Yeah. Like it really sits there for a long time, right? And the cherry strawberry thing is like undoubtedly, right? Undoubtedly. Yeah. Have you ever tried this with that?
Yeah.
Does that work?
I'll make it for you if you want. Yeah.
we should also try it. While I'm here, we'll make sure to try that because I'm kind of curious because that's a coffee that is, I think because of the style of processing or the difference in style of processing here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Let's say you did this with a washed processed coffee. I would assume you're not getting quite as much flavor, clarity, and intensity as you get here.
I think.
Or do you feel you do?
I think I do. But awesome. I will say the punchier coffee, the ones that are like almost you wonder if they're infused or co-fermented or something. Sure. It's something like it's almost like they're cheating with the flavor. It's just coming through too much. I do like it more the iced this way.
Yeah, but I think it's also a good good use for the coffees in a way, right? Because
right.
for me, the style of coffees are or I mean, I guess this falls under that category, right? It's not necessarily a coffee that I would like to drink hot, but doing it cold is more like a jammy, juicy, tea-like kind of flavor intense, good taste experience, right?
In Europe, do you have a Shirley Temple? Do you know what that is? Is that it's like a, in the US, it's
I
like...
recognize that though.
Yeah.
This is also crazy because as it gets colder, it just gets like fattier in a way, and like sweeter and more like berry. It's quite nice actually. I'm not gonna, but it is.
I feel proud now.
I'm trying to figure out what it is that actually makes this work, because I think on paper it does feel a little bit. I'm not going to say clearly not random, because you've been very meticulous in putting this together, right? But it's, the main question here is like, how can we get it so flavor intense? With the kind of grind size we're working with, but it's also it's a combination. It's the dilution. It's the fact that you're actually extracting a very small portion of the coffee. But it's actually it works. Like I would take this specific brew over like any cold brew any coffee shop has ever served me. But like,
that's great.
Fair point actually.
Cool.
Sure.
Thank you.
Then you should go to Japan and try their approach to it.
I really want to.
That's another note. But.
Yeah, that's cool, man. But so I have tried this. Again, I'm going to sound like a fanboy. I mean, you're literally standing in my kitchen right now. But I've tried it on different brewers. I've tried it different beans. There's something about I have your porcelain and I have the glass. There's something about the porcelain.
You don't like plastic. We kind of
I don't do plastic. No shade. I can't.
Fair enough.
But I have done it with yours, and you even, I think you use the word like tea-like on tons of videos and stuff like that. Like that. This method, I think, does the same thing, where it's like, wow, like as it cools down and it even gets diluted from the ice melting, like it does a strange thing where it just kind of opens up like a spectrum that I don't think people get whenever you're just drinking hot. I think it does a different thing with it. Also, the aromatics is like, how can an iced drink have this much aromatics just smelling it, which is really cool.
It has a crazy amount of aromatics, right? Which I mean, I also think is linked to that coffee, right? But I think what gets me here and why I actually quite enjoy this is because you have all of that intensity in aromatics, but it's a clean mouthfeel experience, right? And that's usually the issue for me when it comes to clean coffee. It's the mouthfeel, it's the tactile qualities. Whereas like it's either a little bit dry or a little bit kind of just hollow and unstructured. This has a very good texture to it. A lot of flavors.
Nice.
But it has nothing that interferes with the palate.
Awesome. I'm glad you like it, man. I was going to be the worst video on your site or on your channel if otherwise.
No, I mean, absolutely not. I think it's quite interesting, right? And even drinking, again, like me and these kind of style of coffees are not always friends, right? And I would not necessarily drink, this kind of coffee if I was in a coffee shop and I saw it on the shelf. But I think this is probably one of the better versions I tried of a similar coffee. I think like in this kind of environment, it makes more sense. It comes together in a way that is kind of, but objectively an enjoyable coffee drink.
I was saying a second ago about the Shirley Temple. So in the U.S., Shirley Temple is a cocktail for like children, where it's like they're just put Grenadine and like Sprite or something. And here, this is what this tastes like, but like for adults, like it has more complexity and stuff. But like I said, I've tried 13 of their coffees. Only 2 of them I liked hot. The other 11, both my wife and I, like, it almost feels like we're having a secret that no one knows about. It's like, oh, you should be. And we started trying it with other roasters as well that have these super wild process, sometimes too much funk going on. This tends to tame it down and actually, like, I don't know. It's something that you would actually want to drink every day instead of that, like, I'm going to try it once this week and I'm going to freeze it for until I'm in that mood.
And you would drink like cold coffee throughout because now, like in Chicago, it's not very warm outside now.
Well, so I don't know what it's like in your part of the world in Copenhagen, but in Chicago, it's kind of like the seasons are flipped. Like we're kind of like mole people who live inside for like 5 months out of the year, and we're in heating environments. So after a while, you're like, oh man, I'm actually in heating all day, so I want iced in the winter.
Okay,
and then it kind of flip flops in the summer. We over index on air conditioning, and so then you're like, oh, I want something hot. It kind of like flips in a way, but yeah.
Oh, okay, super cool. No, I think this is actually really interesting, right? And I almost finished the whole thing, and it's I mean, I'm granted I'm a bit jet lagged as well, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, and it keeps on changing, right?
Yeah.
And it has this kind of red orangey vibe to it flavor wise, which I think just makes perfect sense in this kind of context, right?
And other brewers don't do that, so that's, I think, like, maybe you should start marketing the April Brewer not only for hot but for iced as well. Is like the that aspect of it, of keeping that complexity that you were talking about. I keep doing this with my hands, but it's because that's what it feels like. It starts here, and then as you drink, it goes on. Other brewers don't do that. They become unbalanced, and you feel like you're tasting more of like one note, or it's like, oh, it just tastes like ice water now. It doesn't do that.
That's really cool. So April Brewer for like ice brews.
Yeah.
That's a new thing now, for sure.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Our cats are fighting now. So
they're getting grumpy.
Tom York and Tori Amos don't get along very well, apparently.
Okay. It happens. Awesome. I think that's a good space to kind of wrap it up.
Cool.
Super kind of you to let us come in here for sure and brew some coffee together. And I mean, thank you for the background noise as well. We'll make sure you guys get to see where it comes from. As always, thank you for watching. Make sure you comment. I know a lot of you do iced coffees in various shapes and forms. I know you do cold brew, which I don't like, but I mean, try to convince me otherwise. Why not? Make sure you subscribe, share all of this, Patreon if you want to know where I kind of go next. And once again, just thank you for having us. Super cool. And thank you for all of you watching as well. We want to give a special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to continue to make these videos. And we want you all to feel free to always come with suggestions and ideas on the content that you want to see, because we are doing this for you and because of you. Thank you from all of us here at April.